And I have my special library shirt on.
What's your... Shh.
And how long does this go for? 18 minutes?
So it's 3 sections of 18 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And so when it goes, we're gonna hear a little pinball machine, and then we'll stop and take a little break, and then start. Like I'll reintroduce you, and then start again. Okay. Welcome to In the Act. This is a radio program on process in the creative life. Creativity does not just start and stop with artists. We all make aesthetic and guiding decisions. Our aim is to talk through the process and investigate how we choose to express ourselves and live creatively. We are connecting with people about their lives, and that's the subject of our show. So broadcasting from Mead Public Library in Sheboygan, Wisconsin on Mead Community Radio, I am Erica Hunsinger, and this is In the Act. Today's guest on In the Act is Michael Albert. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yay. Well, I feel like we kind of started off with a bang already, like came in and brought all of your cool posters and prints. And I mean, I guess maybe we could step back a tiny bit from that, and like how did these little sparks come to you? Like where did maybe you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, wherever you want to start.
Okay. Well, it's great to be in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. I'll
Yay.
tell you that. I drove here from New York, where I live. I live in White Plains, New York, just outside of New York City. Mm-hmm. And this is the very beginning, my first event on my summer tour. It's a
Awesome.
Summer pop art tour of making art with people at different venues, libraries, museums, festivals, and some other venues, senior centers. And
Cool.
the starting point for planning this tour was that I was invited to your Maker Faire, which is happening on Saturday. And with COVID, I had started doing virtual programs.
Oh, right.
And I realized that, before COVID, when I was planning programs, I would plan physically where I had to go and how I would get there and that kind of thing. But when I realized I was able to do these virtual Zoom programs, I could do them anywhere. So I started sending this email out to librarians, programming librarians and programming educators at museums.
Awesome.
Everywhere. And so I also got some interest in North Dakota. And somebody said, would you actually come here? And I thought, well, I think that's kind of near Wisconsin, so I could try. I could start in Wisconsin and then head out to North Dakota. And I planned this 5-week tour.
Wow.
I'm going to 60 different venues in 12 states.
Wow.
So I'm so excited that this is to start with a radio interview at the Mead
That's awesome.
Public Library. But my quest to be an artist started when I was in college. I did not really think about being an artist before then. I did like art class in elementary school and middle school, but I didn't choose it as a elective in high school. Huh. And I went to college. I went to NYU and studied business. But I did live in New York City.
Yeah.
And just, I think like everybody else, no matter what it is you're learning about, studying, or whatever your job is, you have interests that are unrelated.
Absolutely.
And so whether it's sports or music or TV shows or whatever it is.
Right.
So I became, especially studying business, all these different business classes, I started listening to a lot of music. I started reading books that had nothing to do with business. And then I started going to museums and learning about art. And New York City's got some great museums.
Yes.
I started going to the Metropolitan Museum kind of regularly. And recently they made it so that you have to pay to go there, but it used to be a suggested admission.
Oh, right, yeah.
And so I'd go and give them, a quarter and walk around for an hour or a couple of hours. And I particularly loved the floor that had like the Monets and the Gauguins and the Cézannes and the Van Goghs.
Yeah.
And I learned about Van Gogh, I got the book about his letters that he wrote to his brother, and I
Right.
just became inspired by his story, just realizing that you don't have to, be selling your work or even be accepted in your time to possibly become the greatest artist ever. You
Yeah.
know, he's certainly one of the greatest artists that ever lived. He didn't have any of that kind of success
No.
during his lifetime. And so I realized, that that's not really a criteria for creating great art. And I liked that.
Yeah.
I think the other thing I really liked was, when you're in school or generally when you have a job, you have to do something and do it in a certain way. And if you do it that way quickly and just the way they want, then you get paid or you don't get fired or
Right.
they give you a decent grade. But, with art, I realized that that was something that you could come up with your own idea and do it, and it was really nobody's business whether they thought it was good or anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess when you start to want to sell it or stuff, you have to hope that other people like it
Right. Sure.
or see some value in it.
Right.
I also realized that in art, sometimes you could be famous for whatever reason, and people could say they don't even like it, but meanwhile they'll buy it and pay lots of money for it. I thought the ultimate thing is if people actually liked it and buy it.
That's a good combination.
But we're sort of working towards that.
Yeah.
Starting with whether people just like it is I think, a great start.
Yeah.
And I think the most important thing is that I like it, because that's how I'm choosing to spend my time and energy. So
Absolutely.
if I don't like it, then, well, the beautiful thing about making art out of consumer packages and recycled materials like that is you could just throw it into the recycle bin if you're really not happy with it.
Yeah, that's true.
But so, I started experimenting with drawing on my free time after being inspired by seeing great masterpieces of art at
Yeah.
museums in New York City. And now that's 35 years later, and I'm still
Wow.
loving it. I mean, I don't think I would do it if I didn't like to do it.
Yeah.
I think there's something important and meaningful in it. There's this quest to do something great, to come up with something that hasn't been done, that makes people think, that
Yeah.
makes people smile,
Right.
or maybe just think about things in a different way, or
Yeah.
even if all they're thinking is, wow, this guy spent all this time doing this. Why?
Right. Sure.
That's enough.
Absolutely.
And I also know that whatever meaning I put into my work, somebody else is only going to get out of it what they think when they look at it, not knowing anything about me or it.
Right. And
So-
bring their own associations.
Yeah, that's why when you read some of these art critics write-ups, they don't know. They're just, I guess it's fun. It's their art form.
Sure.
But they don't know. They don't know what the artist was thinking. They certainly don't. I guess with Van Gogh, though, he's the most literary of all artists. I mean, no artist wrote 1,700 letters that we have
Wow.
describing his thinking and his life
I
during
didn't realize it was 1,700 letters.
He wrote 1,700 letters. I mean, it's almost like he did nothing but make art during the day and write letters about it at night.
Wow.
And he didn't have anything like money or success to get in the way of that
Right.
quest. But, I also love Lincoln. He's like the most literary president.
Yeah.
Presidents these days don't even write the words they say. I don't know when that started. I mean, I don't think Kennedy wrote his speech, which is one of the great, his first, his inaugural address is
Right.
one of the great inaugural addresses, but he didn't write that,
Huh.
But Lincoln, obviously wrote all of his own words, all his letters, his speeches, his, there's hundreds, thousands of pages of stuff.
Yeah.
So you could really study the man
Right.
and his, all this stuff came out of his own brain,
Right.
which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
So Van Gogh is kind of like that. But I think most artists are, hardly said anything or wrote anything. And you just have to look at their work and
Right.
come up with your own idea of what you think it means and piece together this or that you might know about them.
Right.
And,
Drawing your own associations to it. And
but I love that stuff. I mean, I would go to the museum and read the little cards next to the artwork. Sometimes I'd kind of tag along with a group and listen to the guide talking about art. And also I had the opportunity of seeing a lecture at the Met in college, maybe around the time where I first started making art. The artist David Hockney,
oh, yeah.
he was doing his photo montages at the time. This was like in 1986
Sure.
or 7, and my parents' friends invited me to go to a lecture. So David Hockney was there, and he was showing on the screen some of these new photo montage pieces that he had created, and he was just talking about them. And I remember sitting there and thinking, wow, he just came up with this idea and did it, and now these things that he made are hanging in museums. He's
Right.
talking to, he's just talking off the cuff about things he thinks and things he came up with. And I mean, I was assuming he's getting paid for it too. That doesn't really matter. It's just such an honor when you do something you really love to have anybody else say, wow, I like that too.
Right.
Or that
And did
is-
the immediacy of like hearing him talk like, oh, I thought of this, and so then I used the materials and made it, and like that sort of seemed more immediate then? in
Well,
terms
I mean,
of
it was like he
creation?
took photos of things, went to the photo store,
Right.
took got the pictures back at 1 hour photo the way everybody else does, and
Yeah.
then went to his studio, which really is just a room with a table in it,
Yep.
and put these things together. And no one told him to do it, and he didn't have to do it, and he just felt like doing it.
Yeah.
And it's him describing it. I realized, wow, he really just has a joyful. What a job! What a great job that is.
Yeah. And were you still going to school at the time?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I was still studying business, and I had no thought whatsoever of doing art
Right.
besides just beginning to experiment. I used to
Sure.
draw for about 8 or 9 years before I ever made any collages.
Okay.
I drew with first with pen and ink, and then with markers, and eventually I got this set of wax oil crayons.
oh, yeah.
This brand called Caran d'Ache, and they had 30 different colors, very bright, vivid colors. They had 2 types, the Neo 1s and the Neo 2s, and the Neo 2s were like pastels, so they were
That's right.
smudged. And the Neo 1s were very bright color, very rich color, but they didn't smudge, and I like that.
Right.
I think a lot of the art that I do, the practical nature of it, like I didn't want to work on something that in 2 seconds I could smudge and ruin.
Sure.
Or that got all over my clothing,
Right.
or anything that touched it. And then once you make it, how do you protect it from getting ruined?
Right.
You
So
know,
no
so-
charcoal for you.
I never
Yeah.
really even did that.
Right.
The wax oil actually gets on your fingers
Yeah.
and doesn't come off right away.
Yeah.
But that was about the extent of it. But the color was very rich, and I could carry around my little box of Caran d'Ache wax oils with a piece of cardboard or a sketch pad and draw if I ever had, a few minutes. And
So would you draw from real life then? Would you go into the museum and draw? Or would you would you go outside? Would you set up a still life? Like, what was your process within
all
that
of
drawing
the
period?
above.
Yeah.
I went to the museum. I did a drawing of my favorite Van Gogh painting, the cypresses. I
yeah.
went to the park. I did drawings in my room. In my book, I know they have a copy of my book, In Artists America. There's a piece, one of the first pieces is called The Victim, and it's a self-portrait of me on my bed in college drawing all the different things that were in my dorm room. And you could see my legs sticking out at the bottom. There, that's it. That's it,
Oh.
right? No, right there.
This
Yeah.
one?
You could see my legs sticking out at the
Oh.
bottom. It's like me on my bed drawing all the different things that were in my dorm room. And that I did on a big piece of oak tag, maybe 22 by 28 or something like that. And it took me over a month to do it.
Wow.
So I think that's really when I became, well, first of all, I had never worked on anything, any project for school or otherwise, every day for a month, for hours on end, every single day.
Sure.
You know, I mean, if I did, I probably would have done a lot better in school.
Right.
But, you know, it's like when they say, you know, if you find something you love to do, time flies.
So this was like 35 years ago then.
That
you
was in
created this,
1988.
Wow.
Spring of 88.
Okay.
And I look at it now, and it's kind of a different kind of self-portrait rather than a portrait of my face. You know, it's a portrait of my stuff.
Absolutely.
And it's just as much of a self-portrait, if not more, to get a real idea of what products I used, what stuff was in my life.
Right.
at the
Observing all the
time.
things around you and putting them into this is very similar to what you're doing now. Just a collage version.
Well, it's a drawn collage. It's a collage of images rather than a collage of cut and pasted pieces.
Right.
But yeah, it really is
Yeah.
the same, I guess.
Or maybe those are my words.
I think it's true. It is. But to look back at that and really remember what my life was like at that point in time is pretty, you know, it helps in self-reflection and all that, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and I love, you know, looking back. I don't know what other artists do. I mean, I'm not trained formally as an artist. I do think that one thing about art is that you teach yourself, you know. Like, I couldn't have gone to the best art school possible and learned how to do what I do because I'm hoping that nobody else is really doing this. You
Yeah.
know? I know people used found materials, people make collages out of assorted things, but, you know, I kind of came to mine through my own personal evolution. And while I was doing business, you know, I got out of school and I became a businessman. We could talk more about that, but I became a food salesman. And maybe that has some connection to
Right.
to using food packages.
I mean, and these are businesses, right? And so in some ways that business school, business and art sort of tie together in that sort of way.
Certainly. I mean, look at my posters. You know, I like I was saying before, it's I printed up a selection of my creations, which I use to show the groups of people that I work with, to give them ideas, also to let them know this is what I've done. And I mean, to get known, people have to know your name and they have to know what you do. So just to say, okay, my name is Michael Albert, and this is my work. If they know that, they know a lot.
Absolutely.
You know, they might know a lot more about me if I show them a few pieces in 10 minutes than they do about almost any other artist,
Absolutely.
which I think is pretty amazing. You know, you could ask people who love Van Gogh to name 10 different Van Goghs, and that would be amazing. They would be a Van Gogh expert if they could name 10 pieces that they know
Oh,
offhand.
for sure. Yeah.
You know.
Well, we're back with Michael Albert. I'm Erica Hunsinger. This is In the Act on Mead Community Radio. So we were just talking a little bit about how things lead to other things, like what that process is. And I think that, you know, in the first part of that, you went to NYU and you were in business school, and but that you had this draw to the museum and to drawing and having these other sort of explorations that kind of dovetailed with what you were doing or provided some sort of I don't know, what did it do? What was that like creative process like? What did having those other things, did it help you with business, or what was the I don't know, what kind of, how did that path go?
I think it had something to do with wanting to be a productive human being.
Interesting.
I think that might be the strongest thing for me all along. You know, I was very fortunate to have been able to go to school
Yeah.
and to not have had to work my way through school.
Yeah.
And I started feeling really bad about that, guilty about that, because I had other friends who, you know, weren't as fortunate.
Yeah.
And so I tried to get a job at a local deli. And the only job they had was like stocking the shelves overnight. And they actually weren't hiring for like, you know, they're like maybe in a month or two. And I think around this time, but the need to be a productive human being was, you know, I was ready to start whatever I was going to do. Business is a kind of a general subject, you know. There's
Sure.
so many ways it could go, and I wasn't particularly interested in finance and accounting.
Yeah.
You know, my family had a business, so they had a lumber business, and my dad worked there, and my uncle and my brother. And I thought that I would learn stuff so that maybe I could be helpful or useful to them. Also, because I had benefited, such
Yeah.
as being able to go to college because they worked hard
Yeah.
and sent me to school. You know, my job really was to just go to school and do well and learn things. So I was very fortunate in that regard. But I was really feeling like, you know, okay, want to start working hard and figuring out what I'm going to do and be successful at it, whatever success means, you know. And then learning about Vincent van Gogh, the whole idea of what is success really kind of blew my mind, because I said, well, I think Vincent van Gogh is more successful, is like the most successful human that ever lived, or one of them, you know. And I don't necessarily think that somebody earning a big pile of money is necessarily, you know, my definition of what success is. I mean, maybe
Interesting, yeah.
depends on how you earn it and maybe what you do with it. But just that as the goal to me didn't seem like that's success. There were many people throughout history who've made big piles of money, and we don't know who they are, and we don't care. And if we did know, we still wouldn't care. But Vincent van Gogh didn't make any money, and we care
Yes.
deeply. He's
Yeah.
inspired millions of people, including me, which, you know, is the only person I really know too much about.
Right.
And so I just thought, well, not only that, at the time, which was about 1988,
Okay.
87, 88, one of his paintings went on auction. One of his masterpieces, the White Iris painting, which is
Oh.
a field of, you know, a flower bed of blue flowers with one white flower. And it was on view at Sotheby's in New York, so you could go see it. And it was in the news, and then it went to auction.
Did
and
you actually go to see it?
I saw it.
You did?
I did. I went because you could
Excellent.
just
Yeah, right.
go. I took a subway. I went and
awesome.
saw it. I'm like, wow, you know, here's another Van Gogh. And I had also traveled, backpacked in Europe, and gone to Amsterdam and gone to the Van Gogh Museum. So, you know, his stuff is. I mean, the one thing I really thought was really cool in that museum is his palette is kind of hanging on the wall there, and you see his palette, this piece of wood with the paint and his brushes, and it's just like, I don't know, the romantic idea of what a great life is, what somebody who's achieved greatness. You know, I'm 19 years old, I'm 20 years old. I want to achieve greatness. I don't want to not achieve greatness.
Yeah.
That's what my goal would be, to do something truly great, to do something meaningful, interesting,
Yeah.
fun.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Do you want to? I'd love to be able to make some money too, but
And have the freedom to make your own decisions. Seems like was important too.
Yeah, I think the definition of selling out is giving up something for money.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
as important as money is, it's not important enough. This is your life. This is your time and energy, and this is your opportunity. So to trade it for money, a lot of people feel like they're going to get their enjoyment outside of their work.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to work and get the money that's going to enable them to enjoy their lives.
Right.
And, I'm married, by the way, and we have 4 kids.
Yeah.
And we homeschooled them. And mostly because we had this romantic idea similar to, the whole idea of everything is kind of all connected. But just the idea that we wanted to spend more time with them when they were little. Because now they're not little anymore. I mean, I'm 54. My daughters are 27, 24. My son is 22, and my other daughter is going to be 20. They're, as they say, they're grown up now.
Sure.
They're adults now.
Right.
But that short time when they were little, it's very short and quick, and we just realized that
Right.
somehow. So we wanted to be with them,
Right.
not send them away for most of the day and then have them come home and how was your day? What'd you do? Nothing,
Right.
that kind of a thing. But
I mean, those are all really creative. Those are creative decisions that you've made in your life, and how, what's going to feel best for you. Tuning back into yourself and your relationship with your wife, and how does this work? How do we want to navigate this?
Yeah, and there's no set way to do anything. I mean,
Right.
I guess that's what you learn.
Right.
If you work for a corporation, you used to think, okay, I get this job for this corporation and I just do what I'm supposed to do and work hard and I'm going to move up the chain
Sure.
but it's not how things go.
Yeah, it's
I
not
don't
linear
think.
like that.
No, and there's no guarantees in anything, and there's no guarantees in even that there's going to be a tomorrow.
Right.
So,
Were you scared at all, or when did you sort of choose to make the leap then to become an artist? What was did it happen pretty much overnight? I mean, this was such a significant piece in your book. And then you mentioned earlier that you were a food salesman, food rep?
I got into food sales. I was interviewing, around the time I was doing art like that and starting to draw almost every day.
Yeah.
And bringing my art materials with me, I had to get a job. I had to think about a job, and I didn't want to go into the family business right away.
Right.
My father had said, start somewhere else, get some experience, see where that leads, and maybe you'll come back here, maybe not. And I was interviewing for banks and insurance companies because at the NYU career office, that's the kind of people that were, looking for employees. And I just couldn't see myself. I just thought I shouldn't be advising anybody on anything, because I don't know or care about this stuff very much.
Yeah.
But, like I said, business has so many different facets to it. I love interacting with people. I love having something worthwhile, showing it to them, and then buying it.
Absolutely.
And,
it's a relationship.
So
Yeah.
I was doing these interviews, and they had a 3-ring binder on the table in the waiting area that had a whole bunch of loose leads, job leads.
Yeah.
And one of them was somebody who was looking for young business-minded individuals, and he was offering exclusive distribution rights for a new product, which was a lingonberry juice from Scandinavia.
Wow.
Kind of like a wild cranberry juice. And I saw that. And at the time, like I said before, I had traveled in Europe, and I had seen this soda called Orangina. Mm-hmm. Orangina was instead of, the fake orange color orange soda, Sunkist or Fanta, that or Shasta they used to have that didn't even have any orange in it. I remember what was big at that time was the Snapple sodas that had no color.
Oh, right.
They had this. They had the Orange Bright. It was called. It was a clear soda, but it was orange soda, and it was like, wow, the orange color is just completely unnecessary.
Right.
And not to mention artificial and red dye number 14 and yellow mixed with yellow dye number whatever. It's just. So, but Orangina soda was like a sparkling water with 12% orange juice and pulp in it.
Right.
And so it was the color of actual oranges, and it was refreshing and delicious. And I had tried that in Europe. And then the next thing I knew, right around this time, it was suddenly in all the delis and supermarkets in New York. They had done some distribution deal. And now it was in New York. And so I saw this flyer for the lingonberry juice, and I thought, maybe this is like that. This is sort of like a better version of ocean spray cranberry juice. Instead of cranberry concentrate, water, and sugar, this is wild lingonberries, which are just like cranberries, and mixed with a white grape juice instead of water and sugar. And it was in a nice European bottle, a 250 milliliter bottle that looked like a little decanter in glass. And they had a 750 milliliter too. And they also had a lingonberry blueberry flavor.
Awesome.
And so I told my friends about this. I had two good friends who, one was an anthropology major and one who was like my best friend in school. And another was someone we had just met who was in one of my finance classes. And they were also trying to figure out what job they would get. And I told them about this, and we decided to go meet the guy. He had an office up in Connecticut, not too far from where we were. And, we decided to try to be the exclusive distributors of the Nordia lingonberry juice. That started my career in the food business. And I was so happy to have this opportunity. I'm like, I'll work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I get to own the company. All I have to do is work really hard and I guess be successful. I mean, it became a real journey and learning experience about business and food and working with friends and everything. Logistics, distribution.
Sure.
Money. So
you were going into like these grocery store chains and places, and
we went into
you're seeing tons of products, and like
my dorm that senior year was on 3rd Avenue and 10th Street in New York City. And basically the first day we just got, one of my friends had a station wagon.
Yeah.
And we went out to New Jersey and loaded it up with lingonberry juice. He had sold a container, brought a container of this lingonberry juice products over and put it in a warehouse. We had to just go there and pick it up and then sell it. And so we went up 3rd Avenue to every single store, deli, restaurant, cafe, grocery store. We quickly found out where it would sell and where it wouldn't. We went into busy restaurants with bars at lunchtime, and people said, "Why are you trying to sell me at lunchtime?"
Right.
We quickly found out who buys it and where it sells, and started sold right out of the station wagon. We had like a little memo, those little memo pads, invoices. We'd write them up, and some people said they wouldn't pay us right away, so we had to start organizing who owed us money.
Right.
And we also didn't have to pay for the product until we sold it and collected on it. So that was one of the things, because my parents said, well, wait, you just went to NYU and now you're going to do this? And they said, well, that sounds good, but, what kind of investment do you have to make, because you don't have any money.
Right.
And so we didn't have to make an investment because we were consigned the product.
Gotcha.
So that was good. And
how long did you do that for?
Well, I worked with those two friends for close to 3 years.
Wow.
And then decided to go on my own. It's a longer than an 18-minute story.
Yeah.
But if you look 2 pages hence in my book, I eventually
Yes.
started my own brand.
Yes.
What happened is that we started selling other products besides the lingonberry juice. Word started spreading because anybody that had a new product wanted to get somebody to hawk it on the street.
Sure.
So word spread that these three young guys from NYU were running around and that we were only selling one product. And so a lot of people would call us. And our deal originally was that not only did we become the exclusive distributors of it, of the lingonberry juice, but we couldn't sell anything else either. He wanted us to give all of our attention to his
Gotcha.
product,
Right.
which is understandable. But by the end of that first summer, we had gotten about 75 accounts buying from us.
Wow.
And but we went to go pick up some more product, and he hadn't paid his bill at the warehouse. So they said, we're not releasing any product until he clears up his debt with us. So at that point, he had to let us carry other products while he was figuring out how to deal with that. And so several of the other companies that had called us, we said, okay, we could distribute your products now.
Right.
And one of my friends lived right near me on Long Island where I grew up. And he lived with his mother and his sisters. And we started using he lived literally around the corner from me. And I was living at my house, and he was at his house. And we started picking up product and keeping it in his garage. And every morning driving into the city, we started branching out. We started selling in Brooklyn. We started selling in Westchester County.
What flavors did you do?
What other products?
Yeah.
Well, we did the lingonberry juice. I said it's a long story, but
Yeah, no, that's
we
okay.
did the lingonberry juice, lingonberry blueberry, and then he had black currant juice, which was also delicious. Other products we started selling were, it's not like I had a real focus on that I want to carry European imported products. I just wanted to have my own business.
Sure.
And it just happened to be that this is the guy that we connected with. But I liked the fact that it was natural. I liked the fact that it was organic. I didn't like the fact that I had never been to Sweden where it was made and never
Right.
met the people who made it.
Right.
And it seemed like the guy who owned the brand that we had met, who wasn't paying his bill at the warehouse, was a little bit of a mystery,
Yeah.
a riddle, and scary.
Right.
So, plus the three of us working together, it became very, very intense. Suddenly we had to not only keep track of our business, but follow up with accounts, start developing a route.
Right. Lots of
financing it.
Sure.
It became awkward to have my friend's garage in a quiet neighborhood loaded to the ceiling with products that
Right.
renting U-Hauls and picking up 300 cases of this and
Right.
and every morning meeting there and loading our vans, our station wagons, and then we
Right.
got a van with hand trucks. I mean, it was crazy.
Crazy.
But it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was an amazing experience.
Yeah, I see it all over your face. You're like
Yeah.
excited and like so, and I want to make sure
You
we have
can't-
enough time to talk then about like the
art.
part, like, because this is such a perfect example of how, all of these different creative choices, like what the drive is for you, what it was for you, how it happened, and then where it leads to, and so I want to get to that part too. Well, we're back with Michael Albert. I'm Erica Hunsinger. This is In the Act on Mead Community Radio. So we'll try to rein it in a tiny bit, maybe.
Yeah.
Not rein it in, because I don't want to do that to you at all, but to focus it just a little bit in this last home stretch into the artwork, because I think that what you're talking about is so important for people to know and to hear about for their own lives, to expand and explore and take these brave choices and risks. And it's it's so part of this crazy thing that we have to do when we're alive. Like, what are we doing today? How do I do this tomorrow? And, and how and what things inform those pieces of our choices. So anyway.
I think that the food business thing is very deeply connected to the art, because what happened is that after a while, I realized that the lingonberry juice is not me.
Yes.
I was acting like it was me. It is me, but it's not me. It was his product. He was using me.
Yes.
I'm a good salesman. I was able, I was selling myself.
Yes.
And his product was like the thing. But I quickly realized that's not me. And then I actually split up with my partners and I decided to go out on my own. And I had all these customers who had become, some of them had become friends or, good associates. And I wanted to continue doing that. I liked that. And I wanted to, like I said, I liked natural foods. I liked organic, which was starting to happen. And I also liked things made in America.
Yeah.
I wanted to know the people whose products I was selling. But even that, so I started my own company called Tri-State Natural Foods and found a selection of natural and organic foods made in the U.S. that were all made by small producers. Started selling those to many of my same customers and others. My younger brother started working with me. We started using a corner of my dad's warehouse, because my father was like, you got to get out of you can't be in a residential neighborhood in a garage. You need a real van.
Yeah,
we had used vehicles that were breaking down all the time.
Sure.
It's like you lease a new van and it won't break down, at least for a couple of years, and you take care of it.
And you've made enough money by that point so that you could actually do that, right?
Yeah, or that's worth investing in.
Exactly.
You know, and but even so, I found that these products were not me.
Yeah.
And so eventually I had the idea to create my own label. I mean, it was there's a longer story to where it came to that decision, but I decided to come up with my own label, and I used my art to come up with this brand called Surreal. This inspired by surrealism, inspired by a show of Magritte's work I saw at the MoMA, and other artistic influences. But I mean, at the time, I thought to myself, I don't know how to do a label. I can't do this. I came up with the idea and I even sketched out what it should look like, but I thought I needed to get a graphic designer to do a label.
Yeah.
The first one I spoke to wanted all this money, and then they wanted to know, well, if you're going to put it on a T-shirt, I want even more money, and if your distribution is going to be wider, I want even more money. And I thought, now I'm going to start running around begging everybody I know to put their art on the shelves so that they could become famous? No, I'll do it. I'll do it. And so kind of all these things led me to realize that the only thing I have that's me, that nobody else can take away from me, is my own art.
Yeah.
And even my products that I make now, I do Surreal still. I own the brand. I created the brand. I make juice. But it's not my juice. I mean, it's my brand, but it's made by a company that it's their juice.
Right.
Even if I specify how I want them to make it for me, it's still their factory. They buy the fruit. It's their juice.
Yeah.
And I have jam made by a great company up in New England in Vermont, but it's their jam. But it's my brand, and it's my art. And my art is the purest sense of that. That's the one thing that no matter what happens, nobody could say it's theirs.
Yeah.
Somebody else could buy an original of mine, or I could even give them an original of mine, and then they could sell it, let's say, for $1 million, and I get none of the money.
Right.
But still, nobody could ever say they made it.
Right. But it is used, it's interesting because it is initially the work, the material, the medium is of someone else. Like it is the brand of Frosted Flakes then that you took apart and made your own. So it is sort of like this incorporation and renewal process in some ways.
Well, that's true also. some of the things that I make now, taking elements of all these well-known, iconic consumer brands.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the next thing you know, you can't license it because, well, Kellogg's owns Tony the Tiger, and everybody else owns their font and their branding.
Right.
But as far as an original work of art, which really, I mean, I would say that my goal, as things have evolved, it started as thinking that if I could, anybody that could create something that could end up in the Museum of Modern Art or the Metropolitan Museum of Art or a place like that, that was a great life achievement, period. Mm-hmm. And so that would be my ultimate goal. Somehow, me coming up with something, my own idea that I made myself, that's considered worthy of that type of valuing it, you know.
Yeah.
Putting it in there, protecting it.
Sure.
And so that's still the goal.
Do you have a piece that you feel an attachment to that feels that rises above some other pieces for you? Like this is really a piece that I truly love. That I think is a great piece. I mean, I'm sure there's lots, but
I'm really prolific. I'm frighteningly prolific. I've been making art every chance I get for 35 years.
So what's your process then?
Cutting and pasting.
Yeah.
You know, sitting down with whatever materials I have available and making something. I mean, my Frosted Flakes box, the first collage I ever made using a cereal box, I think was a great breakthrough for me. It really went after 10 years of making art, drawing, and I was also making collages out of stickers and junk mail and photographs. Then finding that as a medium, I think, was a major breakthrough. I think I did a lot of serious stuff before that, but that has turned into traveling around, people collecting their boxes, showing them. You know, I never thought that it was going to turn into this type of teaching and opportunity to travel around to libraries and museums and festivals and senior centers and, you know, all sorts of cool venues and meeting people all over the place and sharing my work with them. And I always remember I had a show back in 1998 where I really kind of debuted a lot of my work. And there was this old couple. I don't know how old they were because I was probably 32 at the time, but they seemed old. They must have been in their 70s, and they were very eclectic-looking people. And apparently, they had gone to a lot of Andy Warhol's parties back in the 60s and 70s, and they dressed
at the factory.
In the factory days, and they were at this event. Some of the surviving people from the factory were there, and I had all my cereal boxes, and I had also started using multiple different types of packages to put together these other types of ideas. One of my other ideas was called The Last Breakfast, where I thought, well, if I do cereal box art, which I started calling serialism, then if I do my version of The Last Supper, it should be The Last Breakfast. And surreal should be the central figure surrounded by the 12 apostles, the famous iconic characters from famous cereal boxes. And that I started, it's in my book, and it's a few pages before that. And messages cut out of letters, I think it's right before that. That's it.
There we go.
You know, and so you could see some of the messages I put in the background behind the characters, like live each day as if it were your last, do the right thing, love your neighbor, be patient, try your best, there are no shortcuts, seek the truth, seek the real. You know, some of the most important messages in life. And represented by fonts from iconic cereal packaging, and it seems silly, but I think it's not. I mean, sometimes you listen to a song that just sounds so great, and then you realize it's such a heart-wrenching subject that, it's kind of like
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think these things are heart-wrenching. I just think they're deep thinking, thought-provoking ideas.
Absolutely.
Like the golden rules of life, basically.
Yes.
But so I had this show, and I was chatting with this couple, and the gentleman said to me, he's like, this is great and everything, but, you can't imagine right now where this might lead.
Sure.
And so I think what he meant was this idea that it would turn into this, traveling, inspiring, being inspired opportunity to see the country, the world, and to share art. To be in a room full of total strangers who, are interested enough to let me show them my pieces and tell them a little bit about my story, and then the next thing you know, put on some music that I like, put on some Beatles, put on some Miles Davis, put on some Grateful Dead, put on some, stuff that I like to listen to in my studio, and the next thing you know, you have this room full of people, from 5-year-olds to people my age to, the grandparents, all working together. I kind of got their creative wheels spinning. Here's a pile of packages, scissors, glue, a cardboard base, and who knows what they're going to do. Some of them try some of my ideas, some of them blend ideas, some of them have their own ideas.
Yeah.
But there's like this period of time where nobody's doing anything except working and loving it. And it's just like, I call that the zone. It's like the zone. And I find myself in places I would never get to go to otherwise, and it's just wonderful. And I have these posters which I give everybody who participates in my programs, which, like I was saying, is I call it shameful self-promotion, but I know that it's they're giving to me. They say it's better to give than to receive, but without somebody to receive, you can't give. So it's this mutual, special thing that kind of evolved out of my desire to do my own thing, to work really hard, and
to find your own voice.
to find my own voice, to continue to learn things. I've never been so interested in learning things. You don't need somebody to tell you what is meaningful to you or should be, but you need to care about finding that for yourself, and then I think you can.
That's such a great point. That's beautiful. Yeah.
So this is awesome. I so appreciate you inviting me to speak with you about this. I wish we could talk more. We will at some point.
Yeah, this has been great. Would you tell us what your website, how people can contact you?
Well, I have a website. It's just my name, michaelalbert.com. I have a Pinterest, which Pinterest is a great tool. I have pinterest.com/surrealjuice /
And Surreal is SIRREAL.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Juice. SIRREALJUICE / And I have over 5,000 examples of things I've made on there,
Oh my gosh.
organized by it's such a great way to organize things. I have cereal boxes, I have text-based pieces, I have American flags, I have my early wax oil drawings, I have photo collages, I have photos from events. I have one where it's pieces other people have made at my workshops. All sorts of, it's a great tool.
Fabulous, yeah.
You could go to YouTube and punch in Michael Albert, American pop artist, and some stuff will come up. I am working on a documentary because it's such a cool thing to be able to travel around.
Right. What a shift this year for so many people, and how that's affected and shifted with you, and that you've adapted and had to move with.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with business. You gotta be adaptable, and you gotta keep the goal. You gotta keep your eye on the prize, right?
Yep.
Which is to enjoy your life and do some good if you can, and take advantage of the opportunities that you're fortunate enough to have.
Right. Well, thank you so very much for being here, Michael. This was really great.
Thank you. This is awesome. I mean, Anne is wonderful.
Anne is wonderful.
You know how we did this virtual program. I don't know how we got in touch originally. I don't know where she invited me to the Maker Faire. Maybe you were supposed to have the Maker Faire last year.
Yeah, we were.
And it was canceled. But we ended up talking and then doing the virtual program. And then she wrote me a lovely handwritten thank you note. And I just thought, this is the kind of thing, that I think really makes life special, taking a moment out of your time and doing something that doesn't need to be done, that shows what you really care about.
Yeah. Agreed.
And that's why I said, when she said, well, we're really thinking of doing this in person, I'm like, I'm coming. At that point, which was months and months ago, when, we're really kind of coming out of the COVID, hopefully. But at that point, many people were like, that's not happening. Nobody's doing that.
Right.
But I said, you know what? We're going to do it. I'm going to do it. Or at least I'm going to say I'm going to do it until the last possible minute.
And see how it goes.
If something...
Right, which is really creative thinking. I mean, it's really, those are the important pieces about creativity. It's like, what do you have in front of you? How are you going to shift and use it and connect with it and connect with people? And
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
In the Act is produced in the studios at Mead Public Library in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. More information on the web at meadpl.org.